Toxic ego games. Telling others to change to gain your approval. Superior/inferior position in the transaction. You're used as a tool to inflate others' egos. Energy vampirism is often at the root of it. Can be used to manipulate you if you allow it. These are not win/win situations. They're win/lose. There's always a winner and a loser, just like in politics. It's a competitive system, not a system of cooperation. The difference between the ego-based system and a system of cooperation lies with one thing, the heart. When the heart is open, even partially, a whole new way of life opens up to the human. Imagine a world based on loving others, giving to others, cooperating with others, instead of the self-serving world of greedy acquisition of more money and things that we're living in now. What are ego games? You want a great example? Go into a bar and listen in on the conversations, especially about an hour before last call when people are at their most inebriated and desperate to get laid. The thing you have to note about alcohol is it helps you dispense with inhibitions. With inhibitions, you often find your integrity, so when you're tanked up, your integrity disappears. Another word for inhibitions, boundaries. When you drink, you lower your boundaries and there's a reason you put them there in the first place. Don't lower them. I found this explanation on Google. The effects of alcohol are balanced between its suppressive effects on sexual physiology, which will decrease sexual activity, and its suppression of psychological inhibitions, which may increase the desire for sex. As I said, when inhibitions go, so does integrity. All bets are off as the person tries to find a partner for the night. That's when manipulation starts. Believe me, I used to go to bars until I was 30 and heard every kind of come on possible, even that one of saving the guy $50 for a prostitute. This is where flattery is used as a tactic, because obviously someone trying to become physically intimate with you isn't going to put you down. Or are they? That's the other point about ego games. There are times that they call for building someone up and other times they call for putting someone down. None of it has anything to do with honesty or respect, really, it has to do with what you're trying to trick them into giving or doing for you. And it has to do with the hidden belief you have that you're either asking for something you don't deserve, or that you don't believe you're good enough in general. When is it appropriate, for lack of a better word, to build someone up? When you want something from them. When is it appropriate to cut someone down? When they want something from you. That's right. The abusive parent will cut their kids down to shreds whenever they come to, God forbid, get their emotional needs met through the parent. With my parents it was never with my father and once in a while with my mother. I used to go to my sister and my friends for help. I had a girlfriend who was like a young mommy, so she helped me a lot. When someone is trying to build you up, or flatter you, it's because they decide that by trying to manipulate your self-opinion into helping you to feel good, that they can obligate you to give them something back in return. When flattery doesn't work, they will often resort to trying to create guilt in order to make you feel bad for not giving them what they want. Oh. Seriously. After we've spent this whole night together getting to know each other, now you're going to go home alone. Wow. I just wasted the whole night. Yep, you sure did. Nice knowing you. The other thing, if you're out drinking, buy your own drinks. That way you won't owe them anything. Seriously, there are people who believe as soon as they spring for a meal or a drink that you owe them sexual favors. No, you don't. They don't make your rules, folks. You make your own rules. I don't care about what's commonly done, or the usual way it's supposed to happen. Cut a new path based on honesty. Be careful of the exaggerators too. People who claim that spending a night talking with a stranger is getting to know you, clearly don't bother taking time talking to people and understanding relationships intimately. There was one of my mothers, if you don't lose weight, I'll never be seen in public with you again. Hey. I can do you one better, Mom. How about you lose 150 pounds, Me. And I did ghost my own mother, by the way. I'd had enough of this garbage for one lifetime. Call them on their insults. Call them on their bluffs. But don't insult them back. You're only letting yourself sink to their level. Understand they have to insult you because they feel that badly about themselves. My mother also used to have this great ego game. Whenever someone came to the house, she'd take my face apart, piece by piece, telling people whose mouth I had, whose hair I had, where I got my ears from, etc. etc. This was my mother saying, everything you are because of either me or your father. You have us to thank for everything that you are. You're not a person in your own right, you're just a composite of us. Her ego extension. Once she was taking my face apart to a neighbor, and when she mentioned, she has her father's eyes, I responded with, so what's he using then, which got a laugh and managed to deflect the awkwardness of the whole thing. Everything I did, apparently, was attributable to something they had done earlier in their life. I wonder what both of them would think about my becoming a channeler who channels aliens from all over the universe and who uses them as examples of who not to be. Then there's social media. People fight and argue on it all the time over who's right. Obviously you both think you're right, so why bother fighting? The other thing is when you give up your need to be right, you become open to the truth. It's your need to be right all the time that keeps you from soul contact, because why look more deeply into something when your ego already has the answer? Of course, this is also because the Matrix prompts people to do this. Your ego defends you from knowing your soul, folks, every time you think you're right without questioning if there's more you can learn. Telling others to change to gain your approval. This is positioning themselves as one up. No soul has the right to tell anyone else to change, or to conform to their expectations of them. This is an absolute violation of others' free will and universal law. The person who tells you to change is doing it because they refuse to, or they're trying to disguise the fact they don't know how. People who flatter to have their way with you. Beware of anyone who approaches you with flattery, rather than coming across to you as equals and as someone who is genuinely interested in getting to know you. They have an agenda, and this agenda probably is a short-term one, not a long-term one. Nothing says, I don't really want to know you, like the person who insists they already do, or who starts flattering you from the outset, because this flattery is a form of manipulation in order to get you to conform to their expectations. They are telling you how they expect you to behave and what kind of response they want from you, and that they probably won't tolerate anything outside of that. These are people with an agenda. Someone who wants to know you well will take their time to get to know you. Beware of people who flirt, for this very reason. Superior/inferior position in the transaction. Like I said in the last video, be careful where you're positioned in the transaction. If someone is hitting on you, you are beneath them. That's why they figure they can treat you like dirt. Regardless of what they tell you, what they think of you, they are being condescending. They are trying to trick you out of your greater good, at least for one night. A boss has worked all these years to be able to have inferior staff. They figure because they pay you, they are flying above you. I knew so many employees who stole from the company and had felt perfectly justified. You're used as a tool to inflate others' egos. My father used to do this when we had to go out on art outings as children. He would act like a great stand-up loving, caring dad while I sat there and fumed that he never treated us this nicely when we were at home. We, in turn, had to act like sweet, innocent, perfect children, and I resented it. I was the most blonde, almost white-haired when I was young, so I seemed to look the picture of perfect innocence or something, and that was always played up whenever we went out. I was Goldilocks or something, the little Dutch girl. One time, I must have been about 6 or 7, and we were coming back from the Buffalo Zoo. We had to cross the border and the customs officer asked if we had anything to declare. Did we purchase anything when we were at the zoo? My father said no and was just about to get clearance to leave when I piped up that he had in fact bought the little stuffed toy hippo he had sitting on the front dashboard of the car. The customs officer looked very pleased as he glanced into the back seat to see who this honest kid was that had turned her father in for lying to an officer of the law. Looking back, my father should have been worried about me. The officer said something to my father about kids making his job easier, laughing, and my father did admit that he had spent $3 on this hippo, and we were allowed to go. My father should have seen I wasn't keen on his lying way of life even back then. I hated living a lie. Hated it. Later on when I was 30, I spilled the entire can of beans to my father's ex-boss and family friend and his wife. This man went to confront my parents as well. What transpired between them, I never found out, but I hope he was sweating. I let my father know he didn't get away with anything. Yeah, I was always the rebel. A rebel for truth. You lose status with yourself in order to link up with someone else. I remember when I was dating, which I more or less gave up at 30 years old, I would go from feeling like a person in my own right one week, to feeling like I was an extension of the man I was dating the next. Suddenly I was going to sports games, construction sites, hanging out at the bar he worked at, and more at his request, and yes, you want to get to know where the man you're dating hangs out, what he does, etc., but does he take as much interest in your life? Or does he expect you to become part of his only? Are you giving up your life to date someone? I remember Glenn, who complained of being dragged to craft shows all the time. This person wants to take you places, show you to their friends and go out on the town with you, and it's all for the show. Not to say every relationship is like that, but watch how you feel when it's happening. Do you find yourself losing self-esteem when you start dating someone, or when you're spending time with a new friend, even? Be careful. Listen to your inner voice. I was always more for being alone with the man I was dating, but this is dangerous when you're with someone who's only trying to get lucky, not trying to build intimacy. Having to go out on the town all the time to see this person, to me, was counterintuitive to my desire to really get to know him. So I spent a lot of time drinking coffee in coffee shops as a compromise. Playing on your fears. Again, the vacuum cleaner salesman and the enlarged dust mite picture. False flags also fall into this category. A false incident is created, which is then broadcast all over the media with ramifications for the public in the headlines, fear porn. Then the government provides the solution, which in fact is part of their agenda. They are reverse engineering the problem, so to speak.